Welcome everybody. Let's bring the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee meeting to order. Please note we're being recorded and we're being broadcast over Zoom. You will have the opportunity to make comments, but this is a business meeting, and like any business meeting, we won't respond to public comments. We thank you ahead of time for them, and they'll be utilized in future communication with people in the district. Heather, you want to open Concord?
Yep, and I would bring the Concord School Committee meeting to order.
Great. First order of business is an update on what's going on from the superintendent.
Sure. So thank you. I'm gonna just go through various aspects of all the work that's happening a bit at a time, and this can be a dialogue with the committee, so ask questions, although there might be value to just letting me talk at you for a few minutes and then see what else needs to get talked about. Essentially, in terms of curriculum and instruction, our work right now is about enrichment, extension, and review. So before we went out on the closure, we worked with the CTA and CCTA and got a very informal, really cordial agreement that teachers would push out a daily 20-minute activity per content area or subject. So that's as structured as we are. And I want to be sure everybody understands that that means teachers have a lot of latitude here in how they operate, and that was by design, at least for the moment. We aren't expecting live meetings or live connections with kids. What we're expecting is that there's some connection, whether it be electronically or otherwise, and that we help give families and kids a little bit of structure on a daily basis. Those are really the top two goals right now. And yeah, hopefully keeping some skills fresh so we don't have great regression. Part of our work has been to make sure that equity is a little bit less of a concern. It's still a huge concern, I think, on our parts, in trying to navigate what's involved with special education, with ELL students, and with those that don't have access at home easily. We're still making our way through some of that. I just got word yesterday of a high school student without internet at home, so we're trying to solve that. We've lent out some laptops at the elementary level because we aren't one-to-one there. A lot of support to the Boston families in many ways, and I'm grateful for the administrative team and what they've done there. In terms of what we're expecting, there's no accountability here. These are truly optional, and I think it's worth explaining why. The commissioners really put us into a place where we aren't on an actual school day program right now. We've reduced the 180-day requirement to less than that, and with the governor's closure, I would say that's a 165-day requirement right now. So all of these aren't days that are actual school days. These are good faith efforts by the part of the system to make sure kids are getting exposure and experience and feeling less isolated. What it does bring is, how do we keep kids engaged? We're trying to track that, at least informally, through the teachers. Kids who aren't participating get a check-in, both directly to the child for the older kids and through parents for the younger kid, or both for the older kids, just to see what's going on. We have to understand that in some cases kids are offering childcare. In some cases, gratefully right now, we don't know if anyone's sick, but that could happen at any point. And we just know we need to be aware that we don't really understand the conditions under which kids are trying to work. So nothing's graded. We are offering feedback, and that's what we keep talking with teachers about. Is feedback is really the important part of the discussion, that they're getting input from staff as to what they're accomplishing, and some relative understanding of how things are going with what they're giving the teachers in terms of quality, and what's on track and what could be looked at for areas of growth. So all teachers are doing that differently right now. We're getting hooked up this week to try to do some grade level and department meetings so that they can start to talk to each other about how this first week has gone. We really want them to craft the common expectations, not have that come down from us. And I think this week is the first attempt to get them a little more synced up, knowing it really is going to vary at this point, and we'll just keep trying to do our best to grow some a little more consistency. In terms of special ed, our message right now has been that we're doing what we can to support kids. Because they're not actual school days, the law does not require that we provide special education services. We're being really cognizant of the challenges that brings, and really cognizant of what would happen if we do go to formal school days at any point. And I think we can talk on that in a minute in terms of the questions and concerns and the big picture view of that. We want to be sure we're supporting kids and making them successful right now. That's the only goal in terms of special education. And it looks a little different for every child. The special educators are engaged and involved with families and trying to help kids access what's getting put out to them. That is the place we're at. Nothing more structured than that. Probably the one piece I'd say that has a little structure to it is the IEP meetings. Through DESI's guidance, we are offering virtual IEP meetings for just regular annual meetings that we're just renewing IEPs, not initials, not reevals. Those also include testing that right now has been suspended. So we're trying to do a little bit of those process pieces just so we're not completely backlogged. And I know a few have already happened this week pretty successfully. And if a family isn't interested in that, we're totally able to say that's fine and wait on doing anything else. In terms of other providers, for example, art, PE, health, they're all pushing things out to kids. I know there's a lot of virtual art galleries coming to be this week at all grade levels. The PE teachers are pushing out physical activities for kids to do. There's a lot of creative things going on. I guess the part I have to say, the quality and caliber we're hearing is going on with teachers and their level of creativity has just been exceptional and extraordinary. And the way that they had to come about this on a dime with no ability to plan or to even know it's coming has just been absolutely fantastic. We're so grateful. And we're hearing that from parents over and over again. In terms of how they're processing this, like I said, it's varied in terms of whether they choose to do online settings or not. Some are, some aren't. If they don't, they have to at least email something to the kids or through the parents at the younger grades. So there's really a wide range at this point. We're talking with the unions, and really there's a lot of need for a wide range. People have not been provided any training. They've had no support. We're very concerned about expecting kids to be online at a certain time each day. We don't know if that's doable for them. We don't know if that's doable for teachers. A lot of these teachers are home with their own families trying to juggle that. So more to be seen if we're going to do anything differently. And again, I'll talk on the longer term plan if we need it in a minute. I'm meeting regularly with the administrators, at least so far every few days, honestly, to talk on big picture and smaller picture things. Jared's running all the operations and facilities work, which includes the provision of food, cleaning the sites, touching base on how all that's going. I'm in ongoing communication with the town as to what the possible needs might be and making sure we're able to consider those needs in terms of emergency services. We're starting to hold staff meetings with the teachers. The high school held one yesterday. The elementaries and middle school are working on those. There's been a lot of smaller level meetings with department chairs and team leaders and things like that. Ruth is meeting with all the special educators by building this week. So we're really trying to build some communication strategies. There's a lot of email going out, which is necessary, but also is overwhelming us all, and trying to be sure that's effective. We know we need to do more than that. So trying to build some structures is the goal this week, and some of them will be regular and some of them more on an as needed basis. Right now, we've got the custodians on call. They're working on different things when we need them to come in. The nurses are very busy helping both with the emergency response and support to families. We are pushing out professional development to everybody who's home being paid, whether it's the noon aides, the tutors, the bus drivers, the cafeteria. We're seeing a really big opportunity to do some professional development that we had hoped to have an opportunity to do. I'm not sure this is how we had hoped to get that opportunity, but cultural competency being top of the list, inclusive practices. There's a lot of benefit to having all of them get some exposure there. In terms of offering our services to anyone else in the community. We certainly are on an as-needed basis. The nurses are working collaboratively and have already offered to support the Board of Health. We're working closely with Emerson Hospital to provide supplies. So the nurses are actually in and out of their offices this week to help us gather what they have. So that's an example of how we're supporting the emergency service responses, and that'll continue to be. I've had just nothing but a nice flow with both communities. Concord especially is reaching out as they brainstorm, and we will continue to be responsive when those things come up. In terms of other services and support we might provide the community, I think we're trying to do it in any way, shape, or form possible right now. The food is obviously the most tangible, and that's been well received and utilized. So we're going to sustain that as long as we possibly can. We'll encourage people to help with donations. That is not a funded project. We're really grateful. The response in a week's time has been $13,000 worth of donations. So we're just, that's overwhelming in such a short amount of time. We've put in for a small grant to subsidize it. The part I'm anxiously awaiting is U.S. food service provision. They are not right now subsidizing food for schools that have less than 50% free and reduced lunch counts. This will get me ranting on all my concerns and frustrations over the government response at both the federal and
Lori, can I interrupt you for a second? Can you give us, where do we send a check for that to donate?
The best option is to go to the portal that's on the food service webpage.
Of the high school's website?
Off of the main Concord School CC website. You go to the
Concord School website, because it's not been publicized. Concord School website.
Yeah, it has. And I talked to Jim yesterday to push it out more in Carlisle. It's been going
Food
out.
service portal. Okay.
It's been going out in my emails to the community as well as Twitter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Jim's going to push it out, I think, more specifically in Carlisle. We spoke yesterday. I think, too, we're trying to be sure that we're connected closely with families. We've already had some families who needed services in terms of mental health and support, which maybe we aren't providing, but connecting. A very stressful time in homes, and our kids at risk are really needing more support. So we're trying to do what we can to support them. I guess we can talk a little bit about forward planning. We're having those conversations, knowing that the April 7th governor order is somehow feeling really close and soon. I'm on extended calls with both area superintendents and the statewide superintendents who are really trying to get collaborative and talk on what our common goals of all of this would be and our common concerns and challenges. We are in regular phone calls with the Commissioner of Education, hearing what Jeff Riley's thinking at the state level. We're begging for more direction and guidance. It got better after the governor's order to at least get the conversation organized so that we're having these regular calls, but we really need some concrete direction and put things to paper so that as we communicate with the communities, it's clear what the state level is thinking. These are really challenging issues, especially if we're out longer than the 7th, in terms of what our instruction and teaching will look like, how much new curriculum, if any, are we going to cover? What do we do with the equity issues? Special education is a whole topic unto itself, and we're all craving more support. So that's a high wish list item from the superintendents to the state. The MASS's advocacy has been exceptional, and they are on a regular line with Jeff Riley to try to get some better direction here. We were told yesterday that probably that'll come out tomorrow. We had a conference call Monday morning. I expect there'll be at least one more before the end of the week. Not to diminish the challenges here. We are starting everything over again from scratch without any ability to have planned for it. But the responsibility is rested really at the local level so far completely. So other things we await word on that, everything's just on hold. MCAS is still out there. We know the federal government's allowing us waivers. Massachusetts has applied for that waiver, but hasn't decided what option they want to go with yet. I think that decision will come for sure if we extend past the 7th. We're trying to support kids in understanding the College Board's decisions, MIAA decisions. College Board's going to a 45-minute online test for the AP courses. open-ended, so that's uncharted territory. Covering material up through March 1st, so they're understanding there's a gap here in what kids can do at the moment. MIA has suspended the spring season until April 27th, awaiting further information. And we just try to keep pushing out information as we have it. I think I've learned to say I don't know in about 50 different ways, because that's just the answer we have right now is where are we and what would happen next. DESE right now is talking with us on these options of starting to do some instruction. It's a soft discussion at the moment. There's a lot of concern at the urban and rural districts about availability of technology and things like that. We're having internal dialogue as to what we think that might look like. If we get to the point where we start to, it's still going to have to be not near the expectation of a regular school day. I think we're very cognizant that the conditions aren't available for that. The commissioner says to us over and over, we're never going to replace a 6-hour school day in a physical building with kids in front of teachers when we shouldn't be thinking we're going to. So certain whatever decisions get made, if this extends, would be through the CTA and CCTA, just like it was the initial time. Any changes would be collaboratively built with them through the input of the staff, and not top down, not at all. In terms of other options that might come up, April break is a big, we've talked on that both at the state and local levels. I don't think there's much to talk about till we even know what the next steps are going to be. And I've heard from the governor, having looked at, if we were able to even consider going back, it's never as simple as it sounds. So we're going to have to give some thought to that. Teachers aren't scheduled to work that break. If the world has changed enough, which I frankly don't think it will have, to even make that viable, I don't know that that's the best option for teachers or families to even consider. We don't have days we need to make up beyond the required ones so far, which puts us at about 165, which still has us out June 18th or 19th, sorry. I know summer's out there as a what if, could we offer more services and things like that? The answer is, I don't know. I have other concerns there too, making sure if certain kids get services, how do we make sure we're getting them to all those in need? So lots and lots of questions that we just don't have the answers to. I think if we get a firm timeline, that would help. But right now, the only timeline we have is knowing we're closed through April 7th. We certainly are hearing other states making decisions about the rest of the school year. I don't know that Massachusetts is going to take that approach. Some of those states close earlier, so it probably feels a little simpler. So far, what we've heard is a more of a staged approach, trying to give us a little latitude to see how the conditions play out. So again, our biggest concern right now is the emotional and physical well-being of kids and staying connected, with hopes of not building great regression. The teachers have done a fantastic, fantastic job. I can't say enough. The feedback I get daily is nothing but positive about what they're offering. And I'm really grateful for what they've done and jumped in such a short amount of time. It's just been nothing but fantastic. So I think that's the big picture. We can take any questions of things I didn't cover or any clarity you want on anything.
Any questions from committee members?
Well, Lori, this is Cord. I'd like to commend you for the calm and the stability that you've been able to share with everybody in the district. You mentioned the accountability piece, and I think we want to emphasize that what you're referring to there is state accountability expectations, which are still in flux. And as a practical matter, the accountability or responsibility we're seeing from individual teachers in the district is, as you say, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because to use an overused term right now, because we're all in uncharted territory, might I suggest that we ask teachers to keep some kind of brief journal, because there is so much autonomy that we have to provide to those teachers to get the job done. And thankfully, our teachers are so capable of taking on that autonomy. But in terms of lessons learned, feedback loops, if you will, might a simple journal and even a template that our director of teaching might provide help us make this an institutional learning opportunity that we take full benefit of, because we've got teachers doing independent, very creative things, and it'd be nice to pull that information together because it gets lost very quickly. We might all be home, but the days still fill up very quickly, especially for teachers who are working and caring for families. So that's the one suggestion I have. And I appreciate that you're thinking short-term and long-term. That's what superior leaders do. They keep their eye on what's immediately in front of the people they support, and also keep an eye on the possible horizon and where we're all going. So I say thank you and keep that up.
Thanks.
I would like to just echo the thanks both for your leadership, which has been incredible. We all saw the email that came in yesterday from a parent, a resident, talking about how the parents really are talking about how much they appreciate your leadership. And I just want to point that out, even though I don't have a correspondence section, it's much appreciated. I will say from a parent's perspective, I will add my own, that the structure is incredibly valuable. It's so helpful to give these kids, not only, like you said, it's not just about the academics, but there's a sense of routine and keeping weekdays different from weekends. And that at least adds a little sense of normalcy, whatever it could be, or something close to it, to this uncertain scenario. And that's very helpful from just, I think, from a mental stability standpoint. And the last thing is just to share the kudos with the teachers again. I have spoken with multiple friends in other districts whose teachers were pushing back and didn't want to do the online, and it took a long time. And they went a week and a half without anything for their kids. And so I just want to share that also. The way our teachers jumped in on this in 48 hours was remarkable. So I want to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, we literally made a plan Thursday afternoon, and by Monday they were with kids. So
Yeah.
I so grateful. So grateful.
If nobody else has anything for Lori at the moment, we'd hear from Linda and Amy about what's going on with high school kids. I think they're being unmuted. Maybe if you could unmute yourselves. There you go.
Can I add one more thing, or?
Sure, Eva, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to also chime in and say thank you so much for your leadership and all the information coming out, all the emails, the ideas about birthday celebration is, I see it's coming to fruition right around the corner where I live.
Nice.
For one of our high school students. So thank you for that. That connection, I wanted to say that connection face-to-face where the teachers on the region side, I can speak to that, when they are connecting with the students, it's, it creates a lot of normalcy for students, and that connection is so important. So please say thank you to those teachers that are doing that actively with the students. It becomes almost that accountability for the student to log in. So that routine is much easier for the parents to maintain throughout this time. And I want to just ask, when it comes to the equity piece, do we, I know this is a very big experiment that we were thrown into. Are we collecting information like about the students, who is able to access the information, what are the students are struggling with in terms of their own personal situation at home, whether they don't have computer? Do we know what our local situation is? Because Desi is talking about the overall equity piece, how this factors into the students' education, but
She must
what
be like checking in with other groups or something. I don't know.
do we know if all of us students, or have we been able to meet everyone's needs to be able to connect to the teacher and the curriculum, well, not the curriculum, the enrichment program so far?
Right, so teachers are logging that. To Court's point of logging, they're logging what kids are engaged and which ones are not. And once they see a pattern of that over, I mean, we're on day 7 here, so patterns are
Yeah.
new at this point. Once they see a pattern of that, they're at the secondary schools using the guidance counselors to report that, and the guidance counselors are then reaching out to get a better sense of what's going on. We are finding that to start to give us a little more information. I think overall, yesterday we were starting to look at survey data we collected from teachers without all of them reporting in, but we were seeing participation rates really, really high of 75 to 85%. However, once we looked at certain sections of kids, it depended on which, it might be different levels of kids have higher participation rates than others. So we really want to dig into that because we want to make sure all kids are really accessing and engaging. And if they're not, we need to know why, because you're right. If there's obstacles we can remove, we need to be sure we're doing that, or supports or accommodations we can give. So I feel like we do have a pretty good handle on that, and it's getting tighter and tighter as the days go on. And we're better understanding what kids needs and supports are.
Thank you.
Amy and Amanda, you wanna participate?
Yes. So I feel like, unfortunately, most questions people still have are things that you don't really know the answer to yet. Like, is it going in pass fail? How many things are going to be canceled this year? Like, things like that. So I feel like, unfortunately, I'm not sure whether we can actually answer those questions yet. But those are just like what people are thinking right now.
Sure. So we know that high school kids, and frankly the elementaries too, but the high school kids are certainly more focused on it. We're in the middle of the 3rd quarter. So there's a lot of question about what we're even going to do with this quarter's grades. At the middle school, we just got, frankly, lucky that we were at the end of the 2nd trimester. So a little cleaner start there. And Amy's right. We just don't know right now. We realize, especially those quarter pieces, we're going to have to make some decisions sooner than later. A little bit of piece of my thinking, Amy, is that once we see what the April 7th return date, if that's real or not, I think if it's longer than that, we will start to make decisions about that. I would expect we probably won't until we have that information.
Mm-hmm.
There is no direct path here that we've been given. We have a lot of concern about going to a real true grading system under these conditions. It just doesn't seem like the right decision. So yes, there's been bouncing around of pass fail. I know there's concern among the kids, even especially juniors, as to what that looks like on their transcripts. I think we need some higher ed input, which we're already trying to get. We know they're already having to modify and look at how they normally do college work because of the testing changes and the fact that every school in the country is essentially in the same place. So much more to come on that, but we'll make decisions that work for kids based on the bigger picture as well as the local need. So that's one reason we're not rushing into it, because it does matter how the rest of the environment plays out around us.
Okay. And then I know, I feel like a lot of people have been saying they want to pass fail. I'm not sure how many people want that. That's because I think people are worried about, since there's no grades right now, how that will look of like less tests go into your grade.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's what some people have been saying, how they're stressed about how since there's no tests or quizzes and no grading for the next few weeks, they have a bigger lower grade in the subject right now than they usually have. And they worry
That's
they
a good
can't bring
point.
it up.
Yep, that's a good point. So thank you. We'll have to definitely consider that piece as well.
I would like to build off of Amy. I think right now there's a lot of unknowns from everyone's perspective, whether or not you're a student, a parent, or a faculty member. And I think as students, it's kind of difficult, at least for me, to be engaged and to actually be productive during this time, because more than anything, there's just a lot of like, I want to know what's going to happen next, like Amy was saying, with the grades. And during some of my teachers, and I believe a lot of other classes have had these online Zoom calls during office hours that you can call in and ask any of your questions, especially since right now we can't really move on in the curriculum. But a question with that is that a possibility that we are going to be able to do it? I think the big thing right now is also with the AP exam, like Dr. Hunter had mentioned, College Board did change the format of the AP to be 45 minutes and online. However, with the units that they are including, I know, for example, my physics class has not learned one of those units, and I think it's probably necessary that we do in order to actually do well on the test, because I believe Concord Carlisle is usually does the best in the state, and then therefore like one of the best in the country performance-wise on the AP exam. So I think we don't want to change that, even though we're kind of in a sticky situation right now.
Yep, those are all the questions we're trying to process. We don't have answers to them yet, Linda, I'm sorry to say, but we
No, that's fine.
appreciate the reminders of what it feels like down at your level.
Yeah, I think students appreciate how the work level is not too overwhelming right now. Because I think some people thought we're going to have 6 hours of school every day, but we have like an hour to each class. So I think it's nice to have like a teacher give an assignment, because then you can keep understanding the subject, but you don't have to worry too much about the level of stress that assignment is going to give you. Because it's usually not, like, some classes have been longer, but usually they're not too long of assignments.
Yeah, good. That's the goal. We're aiming for 20 minutes, knowing we're not quite sure what 20 minutes, how to gauge the 20 minutes. So the teachers are going to hopefully keep getting feedback that it's a reasonable piece we're asking, because there is, we can't expect normal in this environment. Nothing's normal. So.
I think the best way to is even just kind of simulate what a normal day would be like. One of my math teachers was wondering if we could even get like a schedule to say like, oh, like do your, just like a recommended, like, oh, like do your math this time and then whatever, kind of like the A block, B block schedule that we normally have. Obviously it's difficult because there may be some students who don't even want to engage in school right now. I think luckily in all my classes, everyone has wanted to try to strive to be somewhat interactive with the school assignments and somehow stay on track during this time. So moving on from here is, there's obviously a lot of unknowns. We don't even know if we're going to go back on April 7th and if we're going to go back at all during the rest of the school year. So I think kind of adapting to this is obviously not an easy task, but we all understand that it's something that we need to do. And whenever the question is brought up about our grades, my teachers are really good with their responses, and they just remind us that we are in the same boat as everyone else across the country when it comes to the school curriculum and what we're facing when it comes to like transcripts and grades, especially as juniors. For a lot of us, we can't take the SAT or ACT right now until June. And I know some colleges have adapted to that and become more test lenient or even test optional because of it for the class of 2021. And yeah, so I think just moving on from how to adapt to this situation, I feel like luckily we do have a lot of organization with the 20 minutes, but I was wondering if we could progress from that a little bit.
Those are all the questions we are deliberating about. So you're right. You're asking the same questions we are, and we're bouncing those around, and looking forward to some guidance from the state and my colleagues across other districts. And hopefully our goal is to be spending this week and next week developing what those plans could be should we be out longer than the 7th, which I'll say again, I'm pretty sure that's going to get extended. So I don't see any way it wouldn't. The question is for how long. So the good news, I think, is that we're synced up on what to be talking about. So.
And then I think a lot of people just want to know, like, if anything has officially been canceled yet, like the musical or prom or graduation, and whether like anything's official yet. I think people are expecting a lot of things to be canceled, but we just don't. I know people just don't know yet.
Yep.
I think it's a little.
The musical's on my list, to knowing that rehearsals are getting lost every day here, and what the viability is and the timing of the performances. So that's higher on the list. Graduation and senior activities. I think we need to wait out and see what the timing looks like. We are committing to replicating those activities whenever we can, even if it's not on the typical timeline. to the best of our ability, we will be sure you have all those senior experiences that we also look forward to and enjoy with graduation and as many of the others as we can. So it's another, unfortunately, we just aren't sure yet. As the timelines get firmed up, we'll be able to look at what's upcoming and know more. It's a lot of unknowns. We completely
I
appreciate
think
how stressful that is, and wish we had better answers right now. We just don't. So
I think people get that it's very unknown right now, but it's like, oh, what's going to happen kind of thing.
Yeah, and I imagine it's stressful for not just us students, but obviously you, Dr. Hunter, dealing with it, trying to get everyone to realize that it's unknowns, and then everyone trying to adapt to, well, we just don't know.
Right. I'm very grateful that I can get on a call like this with my colleagues and we all share those stresses. And at this point, we can spend an hour talking about how much we don't know and still not have any answers at the end. So we're all having the same conversations. Hopefully we'll make some progress over the next week or so.
It's definitely correct that people are like students are kind of wishing they can go back to school at this point.
Yeah.
I think the beginning of it, we're like, oh yeah, we get a week off school, and now we're like, oh, now I want to go back to school. I think you don't realize how beneficial a day of school is to you until you go this long without having one.
Right.
I think it's also a lot of people before while we were at school were a little bit ignorant to why we would have to miss school, and the fact that it's because of a virus, not because of we're just getting a break from school in the middle of March. And now that like Charlie Baker and I guess really any government official has emphasized social distancing and staying in your home, us teenagers just want to hang out with our friends, but now it's not an option for us. And I think a lot of people went into it like, oh, I could just not do school and just hang out with my friends all day and just do what I want. Well, that's not the case. So
that's definitely interesting. Like, people didn't think about how this isn't just like a break from school. This is a much bigger deal than that. This is like a time when you have to everyone has to be practicing social distancing. Everyone has to put their own effort in. I think by now it's kind of set in more, but I think at the beginning it was more like, oh, we get a week off, let's not do much for a week. But now I think people have gotten the idea, like, you can't do that.
That's good to hear, because that is what we need to do. And the more we do it, the healthier people will be, and potentially the faster this is over. So good to hear, girls. Thank you.
And I actually do like how on the CCHS Instagram, they've been posting like teacher updates. And I think that's been kind of nice.
I love that.
To, like, see what the teachers are doing during this. Like, they've been posting little videos of like, oh, here's my life so far during the quarantine. And it's like, oh, it's kind of nice to see like a quick video of that.
Good. Good.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on to our business, do any of my colleagues have questions for Lori or comments about this portion of the meeting?
I'd simply like to reinforce what Amy and Linda were so helpful with. I think in many ways you remind us that school gives us structure and purpose. And now we have an opportunity to, each of us independently, create some extra structure and extra purpose in our own lives without the daily visit to school. So I appreciate how you understand that, and how your message can cascade out, can ripple out to your classmates. I think that's very important to us right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I think one more thing is, I think like a good thing that's been going on right now so far is like this good communication between just the administration and the teachers and the students, because I feel like it gets a little confusing sometimes and you're not really sure like what's happening each day. So I think it's good that we have like constant line of communication just between teachers, between students, that they're posting all the time on Google Classroom. I think it's just very important going forward, because sometimes it gets a little confusing with all the information coming at us at once.
Great.
Okay. So we have two action items. The first one deals with taking a vote on continuing school payroll. I think maybe the best way to do this is to start with the motion and then we'll discuss. So could I have a motion that the district's despite school closures, the districts will continue employee payroll through the fiscal year end of 6/30/20.
So
For
moved
both.
for both.
Second for both. I'm not sure we stepped on
Thank
each
you.
other.
Thank you. That was Court moving for both and Cynthia seconding for both districts, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
And so this is a practice we've been doing since we closed, and expect that we would continue doing going forward. There are some ripples in this that Jared's working through with his team that are, sort of extraneous things that if we were in session, teachers and staff might be doing. But for the most part, it's, typical salaries and approximation of wages. Lori, is it Lori or Jared? Are there any things you'd like to add before we?
Jared, you want anything?
Go ahead and I'll piggyback on you if I need to.
Yeah, I think, for the most part, we're treating it as if people are at work normally. That includes the hourly people, and we're paying them as if they were coming on a daily basis. We're grateful to have a budget that allows us to do that. Probably the one unique situation is the cafeteria, because that comes off of a revolving account and revenue, and we're really looking at our balances and being sure that that's a safe and fiscally wise decision. I think right now we feel confident that we can do that. So the goal is to keep people whole. I think we feel that's imperative, and we know people are very grateful for that, and it's taken a lot of stress off of them. And we're just really grateful that the community's supporting that decision. There's a little finessing to do on a couple of things that come up. We're in our first payroll in this environment, so Jared's down in the real details with his staff this week, trying to look at what might vary. Even stipends we're looking at. We're asking if the clubs want to keep going virtually, that those could continue. Occasional extracurricular things aren't happening, so they might not get that beneficial money. Spring coaches are on hold. So we're just having to do it at every layer here to get through the first payroll. I think once we get a pattern, it'll be easier. Anything you want to add, Jared?
Not really. So we got through our first payroll successfully. There are still more questions than answers, but for the most part, I would say everyone was paid correctly. There are no complaints, just some questions. We're ironing that out. We're meeting daily, talking by the hour. So more to come maybe in the next meeting, but right now everything is going as smooth as it can.
And just, I guess the other piece I'd add, these are the very essential people that occasionally have to go into Ripley and actually physically be there. We're minimizing that, but this would be the example of who's still occasionally on site, and we're grateful their willingness to do that.
Lori and Jared, could you speak to the technical requirement for this vote?
So this was a recommendation that came from the superintendents. As we've been discussing procedural pieces, it was recommended that the decision not just be left without some public discussion and backup from the school committee at my level. So it's a formality to say that you're in agreement with that, especially given the dollars associated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for a second.
I'll just clarify. As you know, I always say this: all of our payroll is encumbered.
Right.
So we're keeping a close eye on that. So I'll be able to. It will not affect my projections at this time.
Okay. Yuval, do you have something?
Yeah. I find this vote very difficult. We all want to do the right thing. All want to do the moral thing. If it's a formality, it's one thing. But at the end of the day, you're asking us to do a blanket vote. It's not defined by sector. It's not defined by time. One thing is if it's all ending up on the 7th, which is probably, we all understand it's probably unlikely. It can go until the end of the year. We're not presented with any financial implication of this. I think that, I mean, all I'm saying is that while wanting to do the moral and the right thing and sending the right message, if we need to vote on something, we need much more defined. If we don't need to vote, which means if it's within the hands of the authority of the superintendent, we don't need to vote about it. If it's not, we need to be presented with the whole picture. And when we vote about it, it has to be limited. You want to vote, I'm asking the superintendent now, you want to vote until April 7th, until the end of the year, until the end of the budgetary year? We just have to qualify it. It's an open-end blanket, and I don't think we can actually responsibly vote like this.
The motion was until the end of the fiscal year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We don't know the implications. You know, the superintendent just presented us with different sectors, with cafeteria work and stuff. And all I'm saying is either give us more to work with, or do it by sector, or if you don't need us, don't put it to vote. But I personally, I don't know if I explain myself well enough, but we are asked to give a blanket, carte blanche to the superintendent. If she doesn't need it, we don't have to vote about it. If she needs it, we need actually more details.
I don't think a carte blanche is the way to describe it. What we're doing is voting to continue to release the encumbered funds, which we've known all along since we did the budget and we get our regular updates from Jared on the budget. If anything, the number will be lower than what we had voted. So I don't really see the concern around understanding what it is. We know what it is, and we are only voting at this point through the end of this fiscal year. We'll obviously have much more information. We have more information every day. So I don't know that I think I get where you're coming from, Yuval, but I don't know that it's particularly germane in this case.
So I come down somewhere in the middle by saying I'm definitely in support of this, and at the same time I recognize that this school committee can unwind any vote in the future or amend it if it wishes, if that's the judgment of the committee. So I'm not worried about the authority that we're or the symbolic authority, as the case may be, that we're giving to our finance director. However, at the same time, I would say it's a time to be not only hugely supportive of our staff and take care of basic needs, and that includes contractual obligations for the educational work, but I would also ask that we think through implications of club payments, stipend payments, and as you said, athletic payments, because we might want to, at this uncertain time, preserve our funds so we can extend them for basic needs as long as possible.
Lori, may I ask you a question, or Lori and Jared? You have a budget to work with. Do you need our vote on this legally?
Well, that's why I asked if this was the technicality.
Well, we're in uncharted territory here, so I think different attorneys are going to give you different answers. There's definitely been legal counsels that have said you should get it. I would be much more comfortable with a public vote by the committee because we are expending funds you've certainly allocated and approved in the past in an extraordinarily different circumstance. So I personally, professionally feel like I would want your vote.
So that's precisely what I'm actually saying. I mean, I agree with Court totally that, and I started, we want to be supportive. We want to actually, but what Court continued saying was precisely what he said, yes, but there are sectors, there are athletics, there's stipend. At the end of the day, Wally, we are asked to give a carte blanche. We actually asked to actually give the superintendent and Jared full authority to take decisions instead of us. I don't say it's wrong, and I don't get me wrong, it's not a criticism. I think that if we need to vote about it, we might need, I don't know, maybe more details, because apparently court thinks differently about one sector or not sure about one sector. There are another 5 members we didn't hear from. So all I'm saying is it's a problematic vote. I actually am not sure we need it, but that's mine.
I've got more to say, but I'd like to wait for others.
As chair, I was waiting for others. Does someone else want to pipe in first? If not, I'll.
Sure. I only have one. Oh, here, I'll put my video on, sort of backlit. But I only have really one question, which is sorry. You made a mention earlier, Lori, that the custodial, I think it was custodial, is working part-time, or they, there was some reference made to the work schedule, custodial.
Correct.
And I mean, I ask this question in Carlisle all the time, and in Carlisle, the school is an overwhelmingly large employer compared with the rest of town. It's not probably the same in Concord, but I'm guessing you're still the biggest employer. So my question is there, what efforts have been done, since we are paying them, and I do support paying them, you know, what else can they do? Could they deliver meals to seniors? Could they help in some other way? You know, there's going to be so many needs. We have so many people, they want to help, I'm sure. So what can we do that way?
Well, right now they're on call for whatever those needs might be. And this week we've already been tweaking it. Jared's been part of that and looking at what our necessary options are. We're in collaboration with the town constantly in terms of other supports. We followed suit that the custodial staff at the town level is in the same position as ours, all on call at any given moment for whatever the needs might be. So I agree with you, David. I think right now there isn't a spot for them to go serve elsewhere, but they're ready and available should that happen. Right now, the high school custodians are supporting our food program, and they're rotating a daily shift. So we can expand that as time goes on. Jared, do you want to add to that? You've had several conversations with them.
So also, every single building is having a building check every single day. Elementaries, middle school, obviously the high school. On weekends, we're doing building checks at the middle school. I've had conference calls, Zoom calls with union representatives from both the custodial unions, just trying to get on the same page. Everybody knows that they're on call, whether it's the custodial union, even the food service people, our mechanics, bus drivers, they all know whether they're going to be doing PD, but they all know that they're going to be doing something to earn their pay. We're just still trying to figure that all out.
And for them, it's only been a couple days at home. They worked well into last week to clean all the facilities before they went into this mode. So we're just a couple days of them not all being on site.
Okay, thank you.
So I fully support paying our hourly workers, our custodians. There's no way we can sort of say, well, we'll just keep one and not pay 3 or something like that, because they're all so valuable. The other thing is bus drivers and custodians are losing overtime wages, which are probably a big hit for some of them, and may be, make ends meet a difficult thing. So I don't think this is sort of a luxury. I think it's, they're part of the backbone of our system, and I think we have to do everything we can to keep them afloat. Thanks.
And I guess, Heather, you're going to say
I'll
something?
jump in too quickly. This is Heather. I agree with what Cynthia said. I also agree with what Court said, that we need to be careful, and Yuval's point that we need to be careful about our finances. I do feel, however, that we have enough information to make this vote. I feel that we need to give the administration the backup. We are in support of continuing payroll, with the maybe obvious, but request that they continue to watch it, and as they're doing, look at those stipends and other things very carefully and not spend more than we need to, clearly, but to keep that base level payroll going. So I would be in support of that and feel like we have enough information to do that and take that vote.
I just want to qualify what I said. I don't disagree with Cynthia. I actually, for a second, didn't say that we should not pay. My issue is with the vote, with the way it is being brought to us. When we have to approve a budget, we have a long presentation, very long. We get it in time, it's line items and stuff. Here and we have to vote accordingly. Here we actually asked something very differently. I personally would suggest, I don't have any problem with, I don't think we need the vote. I don't think that the superintendent needs it. It's within the budget and it's totally within the power of superintendent and director of finance. But if you ask for such a vote, I would suggest that it will be amended for us actually giving our support in a way of saying we support the superintendent in continuing taking decisions according to the budget in her control, and not actually specifically, because as we said, people come up with different questions about sectors. So at the end of the day, I don't have any problem with the superintendent and the director of finance making those decisions. They are within the budget. But I think that if we have to approve it, we have to give them the powers to do it and not approve as a blanket a budgetary decision. My 2 cents.
Yuval, before you consider making a motion to amend, let's all remember that Jared is accountable to this school committee, to the superintendent, to the community, and we're gonna know to the penny the actions that he took and the judgment that he exercised. I think your way or this motion on the table now effectively does the same thing. It says, number one, we're going to protect our people. It's our obligation. Number two, our people are going to protect the community, and in particular, the students. And number three, that Jared and the superintendent, Lori Hunter, have heard that we are cognizant of the fact that the unknowns are such that we would want them to not only protect the employees of the school district, but also protect the budget, because we are in uncharted territory with perhaps future threats that we're going to have to deal with. So I'm entirely in favor of this vote. Let's make sure we take care of our people and watch these decisions carefully. And we know that some of these decisions are going to be not based on any formula we're going to find on a piece of paper. That Jared and Lori are going to have to exercise the kind of judgment that we expect of them, and I'm fully prepared to support them.
I just also wanted to add. Oh.
No, go ahead, Eva.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I was not on mute anymore. I just wanted to add that this situation is so fluid. That there are changes constantly coming from the federal and state government. So, and the needs of our community will be changing. Not to pay our people would send also a message, not to support them. And in this trying times, it would also send a message to the community. I do agree that we should be very prudent and careful how we spend the funds that we have allocated for paying our employees, but I do support paying these people and keeping them on payroll, and maybe we can have more, part of our weekly check-ins, we can have an overview where the money is going and what our employees are doing, how they're supporting the town, as they are not only the resource to our school community, but also to our town community.
we cannot intervene on this on a weekly or in any basis. Actually.
No, but having an update, at least you have information coming through. Not paying people, it's,
Well,
that's another message.
We have that update in the form of the expenditure authorizations that come to each of us. So I think we're going to get that in a very granular fashion. I think we all agree that support's necessary. I think that Yuval brings up the question around how, not around whether we're supportive of running payrolls. That seems to be a given across this community.
So I guess the question now is, and I think that's true. I think we're all in favor of supporting the payroll. It's a matter of how. At this point, we understand Yuval's concern with the vote. I think others have voiced their comfort on the vote. Is there an amendment coming, or are we going to take a vote? Because we could discuss, but I think we're at a point of let's only discuss if there's something new to add to the conversation.
Should we add something like as originally budgeted?
There's no need. There's no need. I mean, they work within the budget. All I'm saying is that they should have and they do have all the legal ability to work within the budget according to their decision.
Which means A, this is symbolic, B, that it's important, and C, that we're going to watch carefully how judgment got exercised, which we would do on a good day anyway.
Yeah, I think it's important that we support the administration in doing this. They've got enough that they're working on that forward-facing towards students and faculty and members of the community at this point, without having to look over their shoulder at us as to how we're proceeding. So shall we take a vote?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So
we need to do this by roll call since we're on.
Exactly, that's what I was going to ask.
we do. So all in favor for the region by roll?
Booth, aye.
Rainy, aye.
Bout, aye.
Odell, aye.
Mustafi, aye.
Yuval, aye.
Johnston, aye.
And all in favor for Concord?
Booth, aye.
Johnston,
Rainy, aye.
aye.
Oop.
I have,
Yuval, aye.
okay. And Bout, aye. Thank you. So it passes unanimously in both.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was a good discussion. So the next item on our agenda is deals with the parking article. And the intent here is to rescind the previously voted moving of that at town meeting. We don't know when town meeting will be. Certainly going to be different than we would have expected. So I think we could again start with a motion. So could I have a motion to rescind Article 28 of the Concord Town warrant? I don't have the number for the Carlisle Town warrant, unfortunately, but from the Carlisle Town warrant as well, which deals with parking at the high school.
I'll move
So
that.
moved. This is Heather.
Okay, I'll second them for the region.
Okay. All right.
And this would just be a regional vote.
Yep.
Any comments, discussion?
Well, you recall that with your consent, I took on the informal task of trying to dive deeper into this, and I won't belabor us with the details now. But I'm very confident that we can pick this back up when it's appropriate. And I'm prepared to proceed with rescinding for now.
Good. Thank you for the work you were doing.
Thank you, Court. And I'll comment only because I was one of the people who was so adamantly for moving this article. that I just feel that we're in as Wally said, a much different situation, and it's not the time to be asking now. So it's something to pick up at a later time.
I would sort of reiterate that I'm certainly not saying that we don't have the need. I still believe we have a need, but certainly the climate is very different than even at our last meeting. So no further discussion.
You say climate, you don't mean global warming.
Well, you never know.
Well, that's in there too.
We have to add a little bit of humor to this gloomy.
It's exactly right. So all in favor?
Well, I just have a quick comment.
Yeah.
I just want to, I think some of the discussion we had at our last meeting and some of the coverage of the position that Mothers Out Front took regarding the article was somewhat misinterpreted. And I just want to thank that organization and Linda and Laura for their partnership and all of their very hard work. And I look forward to continuing that collaboration. I'm sure Dr. Hunter does as well.
Agreed.
And I just want to be sure that they understand how grateful we are for their work.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. That's completely right. It's been a partnership. Doesn't mean we have to agree on the final stage, but the work up till then had been nothing but collaborative.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, by roll, those in favor?
Booth,
Well,
aye.
Mustafi, aye.
Out aye.
Rainy eye.
Johnston, aye. Is that everybody?
Well,
I think so.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our business for the meeting. Any final thoughts from anybody before we adjourn?
Just a note to the superintendent about the daily updates. I think those are critical, just as the ones from Townhouse through Mr. Crane's office have been critical, and I trust they will continue. I think they're very useful to the entire community, so thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just say thank you. I felt really well supported by this entire community in the last 10 days, and I'm really grateful for that. We're doing a lot of things at schools. I guess I'm going to change the way I was going to say that. What I think we're realizing is what schools do bring to the community. And, food is something we do on a daily basis, and it sort of strikes people as something we're doing extraordinary, but we do it all the time, and it's just showing itself differently. And I'm grateful for all the support we've had, the collaboration among leaders across communities, and at my level, along the administrative team, at the teacher and union level. I mean, it's just been exceptional. So grateful for all of that. And I will continue to provide those updates. And then, we'll see where we are. Things literally are still changing daily, which is even hourly. So hopefully we'll get a little more stable, and that'll help everybody get a little more comfortable.
I certainly want to thank you, Lori, and the rest of your staff and the faculty for the work you've been doing. It's above and beyond in very trying times. And I think the community's better for the work that's being done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So no further comment. I would take a motion to adjourn.
Before we go, can we say thank you to Yuval, because he's on his last meeting in a different format, but it's the last one. So we're grateful for your time.
thank you very much. It was a unique experience.
So I have a question though. Hey, can I ask a question before I thank you, Val? If there's no election
first. No, David, you should thank me first.
All right,
and now you can ask a question.
I don't know about that. So if there's no election, though, is he still in place until there's an election?
No, because Wally will be, because there'll be an extension, but I actually gave notice with a date of March 30th. There's no way to rescind it.
All right. Oh, all right. Well,
that's my legal interpretation. I'll stick to it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you then.
I think the town clerk confirmed it for us.
No, no, I didn't ask, but I think it's quite clear.
I get it. All right, very good.
I think Yuval made sure that he's done when he's done. Thank you, Yuval, for your service and bringing another perspective to the school committee meetings.
Yuval, would when things return to a little more normal conditions, will you join us non-virtually to be recognized?
First of all, if things will go back to normal, you can give me a kiss. Now we can't even.
No, we wanted it for that regular.
Are we still live? Are we still live?
Yes,
We are.
Oh, I didn't know.
We have not yet adjourned.
Well, thank you for your service, Yuval. And
if nothing else, for a little bit of humor.
Yes.
Oh, you brought a great deal. I'm not going to enumerate what.
Okay, I think that's enough, Court. We have a short day in front of us.
Thank
Lots of
you.
work.
Thank you for hushing me up.
Yuval, can I echo Eva's point that you always bring a new perspective and make us think. And many times you have made me think twice or more. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
On another note, I just wanted to mention the building design subcommittee of the building committee is meeting tomorrow virtually, correct?
Yes.
And then the building committee is meeting as well on Thursday, but the agendas are up and the Zoom info is in the agendas.
Yeah, and it's important to note that the only reason these committees are meeting is because they are working with firms that are under contract with the town that have timetables. These firms are still capable of producing work. So this is not to imply that these are essential in the traditional sense of it, but rather they've been authorized by the select board to proceed because of the unusual fact that they are under contract, under timetable with external firms still working on behalf of the town. So they get a rather unusual pass on the otherwise ban of public meetings.
Yep.
I think I just add to that there'll be constant review of what that work is, and when it doesn't feel like we're able to appropriately get public input, that work will slow down potentially. So we're in a constant deliberation about that, and we'll have the meetings this week. I think will get us to a certain level of discussion, and part of that will be the ongoing work or the suspension of, or somewhere in the middle of the middle school project. So.
Good, thank you. I'll also note that keep your eye out for another virtual coffee that Superintendent will be holding toward the end of the week.
I'm looking at Friday at 3. As much as Fridays maybe aren't the perfect time, they are the best time to just recap a whole week's worth of events. So Friday at 3 is the plan.
Good. I don't think anybody's gone very far. So.
Well, that's what I realized too, that timing is almost weirdly irrelevant. So.
Yep. For the region to adjourn. Johnston, aye?
Oh, wait, we need motions first. Can someone?
So moved for both.
Is there a second?
Second.
For both?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Then all in favor.
Booth, aye.
Johnston, aye for both.
Rainey, aye for both.
About aye for both.
Yuval, aye for both.
We cover everyone?
I think so. Well, thank you, and be safe, be well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.